call us to order. You have a role of who's here, Morgan? You don't want us to start with that?
Sure. So present on this call in terms of the board are Mary Niles, Erin Paquette, Jean Marie Clark, John Jejic, Lisa Hango, Catherine Barnard, administrators Lynn Coda, myself, Rhoda McClure, Sandy Alexander, Caroline Elander taking notes, Leonard Bedeau, Christy Martin, and then we have one visitor, Ann Larrabee, and Northwest Access.
Perfect, thank you.
And Miranda is coming in now.
Hi, Miranda, welcome aboard. So let's begin with the consent agenda. I hope folks had an opportunity to read through the minutes and the policies. Does anybody want to make a motion about the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion to approve the consent agenda.
There was one error I saw on the minutes. Do I?
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Item 1 under B, the board agreed to keep the same meeting schedule of the first Monday of each month at 6:30, but we actually meet on Wednesdays.
Ah, good catch. Thank you, Catherine.
Yep.
Can you guys hear the hammering in the background at my house? My husband's renovating the bathroom tonight. I'm glad only I can hear that. Okay, so thank you for the correction. Any other comments about the minutes? Okay, or about the policies?
So I need to take the original motion back or clarify the motion.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
So I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda with the clarification that of the error that Catherine caught in the minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so by roll, we will vote on this. I'm going to start with how I see everybody here. So Erin.
Erin, aye.
Mary.
Yes.
John.
John, aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Catherine.
Aye.
And Miranda.
Aye.
I think, is that everybody? I think, and myself, aye. Okay, phew, all right. Hold on, I didn't print everything, so I'm struggling a touch here. Any comment, Lynn, about, or anybody about rearrangement or prioritization of our agenda for tonight? Okay. And we have at least one visitor, you said, Morgan?
Yeah, Ann Larrabee, and I will unmute her if I can find her. Okay, she's unmuted.
Hi, Anne. Thank you for joining us tonight. Was there something in particular that you were joining us for, or did you just want to listen in, which is also fine?
I'm just listening in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to Lynn. You're up next. You are probably the meat and potatoes of this meeting, I'm going to guess.
Maybe. I might have a few things to chat about this. So as you can imagine, most of what I'm going to talk to you about has to do with COVID-19. And I am going to apologize. My internet access sometimes is a little bit wonky, and it seems like this time of night I sometimes freeze. So if that happens, I apologize. So I just want to start by talking about how grateful I am for the staff that we have in Franklin Northeast. This has certainly been something that none of us have ever lived through before, and there's no preparation for dealing with something like this, and the attitude of all staff members and the willingness for people to jump in and figure out how they can be helpful is something to really be proud of. And I want our community to hear that our people are doing really good work, and they're doing the very best they can in these uncertain times. So that's just kind of what I wanted to say about that. I think that I want to talk a little bit about what's been happening. First of all, we know that we're now under a closure order that will get us through the end of the school year. So there's a little bit of confusion about what that means. So I think some folks think that means school's just out, like we're on summer vacation, and that we generally provide education into this completely different context. So our teachers have been working really hard to provide opportunities for kids, and they're really having to think creatively about how can they provide opportunities for kids remotely, but then how can they also provide opportunities for those kids who do not have internet access or don't have reliable internet access in their homes. So they're having to be really creative about that. And I'm pretty proud of some of the things that people are coming up with. I think that as we're getting ready to shift into this continuity of learning phase, one of the things that we're trying to be really mindful of is that right now we're going through something in our society that it is very stressful, and it's very traumatic for some of these families and some of these people that are coping with loss of job and loss of income and things like that. So we're trying to be really mindful that a big part of our work is around supporting our students and helping to match parents and families with resources that they might need during this time. So that health and wellness component is a really important part of our work. So we believe that the learning component of it is also very, very important. However, we want to make sure that we're providing those learning opportunities in a supportive, manageable way, and that we're setting expectations that are reasonable and they're attainable for all of those families who are struggling with the access, and even for the ones who are not, because the reality of the things that people are having to do in response to this, it isn't realistic for us to think about, well, this is just going to be structured like any other day, because it is, you have parents at home that are helping kids to navigate this, and sometimes there are 3 or 4 kids that one family member is trying to help navigate this new reality of education. So teachers are working really hard to interact with that idea. The other big piece when we shift into the continuity of learning plan on April 13th is that all students who receive, who have an IEP, who are in special education, have a right to what's called their FAPE, their free and appropriate public education. So we need to be really mindful of making sure that we're providing services, accommodations, and modifications that all those students need during this time. And that has been the crux of the work that Michelle Taberge and her team have been really focused on, and supporting the special educators in that work, because as you can imagine, thinking about how to do supports differently when you can't be face-to-face with kids per se, or in the same room with kids, is a little different than how we're used to providing support. So we're having to navigate how to manage things like teletherapies, and we're having to figure out the new role of special educators. And in some ways, some of their work is shifting into supporting parents so that parents can better support their kids at home. So that's a big piece of the shift in the continuity of learning plan, is making sure that we're thinking of and being responsive to the needs of all of our students. Does anybody have any questions about the learning element of this?
Go ahead, Mary.
I had a quick question. I was messaging with Susie about some middle school stuff earlier in the week, and I had asked her, I said that, Naomi's doing kind of live Zoom classes every single day with her school. And I had just asked Sue, it seems to be going well, bandwidth issues in the household notwithstanding. But then Sue mentioned that Zoom, there had been some privacy issues that came up, that Zoom may not be an option for any kind of ongoing learning kind of moving forward. And I was just curious if you could clarify what she might have been speaking to.
So we have been, so one of the things that I tried this morning to make transparent to the teachers is some of the decisions we've had to make have been guided by legal advice and feedback that we've been getting from the Agency of Education and from attorneys that are working to help us unpack all of the things that we need to be contending with. And privacy practices are certainly one of those things. There were some early on concerns about Zoom and the security of it. And I don't remember exactly what it was called, Mary, but people having the capacity to jump into learning platforms that were kind of uninvited into these things. So there was that concern about safety and security. There was also the concern about the privacy practices. So some of their terms had shifted right at the beginning of this response. So in the last couple of days, we have been hearing about how they have improved their privacy terms. And I'm hearing much more favorable things about Zoom. So that's one of the things we're discussing tomorrow. Dominic DeRoja, our technology person, and myself will be discussing that tomorrow. And I hope to be able to kind of lift that ban on using Zoom with kids, because I think it is going to end up being a tool that we can use. We're just going to have to make sure that we're doing it through the education part of Zoom and not through the free part of Zoom.
And just one more follow-up, though, I will say that we've really struggled. I called Fairpoint, and we have the highest internet available on our road, and trying to juggle UVM Zoom, Mimi's high school Zoom, and Jacob's remote work. We're all kind of now having to kind of stagger schedules. And so I'm really sensitive to the connectivity and access issue, because we're living it every single day, like trying to swap off hours and times and windows when someone can be on it, no one else can be on it, trying to use data for hotspots on our AT&T plan, and it's really quite a dance. So I wonder how that'll go for our kids and with other families kind of competing for limited bandwidth, especially on the back roads. Down in the village where people might have Comcast and other, better internet, but we're certainly, Fairpoint said on our road, short of a few $100,000 upgrade of lines, like this is it, kind of forever.
And that's a part of the considerations that we have taken and really tried to unpack, Mary. When we're thinking about expectations for kids, we need to be realistic, and we need to be able to make it attainable for kids. I'm in the same boat where there are times in the day where I have to say to my kids, you have to get off, because I really have to be on this Zoom call so that we're dropping things if we're all trying to do our work at the same time. So if our expectation is that we're going to be 7 hours doing some sort of real-time learning with our classroom teacher and with the rest of our group, the reality is most people don't have the bandwidth to be able to do that, so that it doesn't make it a realistic expectation for our students. And it actually, so it's just not something that we're going to expect. The other part of this is not all learning has to be live synchronous learning opportunities. There are also ways that we can structure asynchronous learning opportunities. So there are ways that the teachers can be planning mini lessons. So it doesn't need to be that everybody's on at 9 a.m., but when you go on, here's the mini lesson and you can access it. And then here's the assignment that kind of goes with that mini lesson. So there are lots of different modes that people are exploring. And like I said earlier, people are just working incredibly hard to try new things. I know we were joking a little bit earlier about how many takes it takes to make like a screencast. I did my first screencast this morning, and I probably had 20 takes trying to get that the way I wanted it to be. So everybody's just on a really steep learning curve, but I'm feeling confident that we're going to be putting forth some really good things for our kids in the coming weeks, the best that we can do. Like I said, it won't be the same as being in school, but we're going to do some good stuff for our kids. So we kind of naturally shifted into the equity piece, and we've already talked about that, the limited technology and the limited accessibility. I will say that there have been a lot of companies like Comcast and Fairpoint, and I can't remember the whole list of them. We have them posted on our website, but they have stepped up during this crisis, and they've offered free internet access to a lot of families. So I know that there's quite a waiting list for some of those families, and I know I was talking to a principal earlier today who said we definitely have had a few families that have had success and have been able to get on with one of those free 2-month trial plans. So we're hopeful in that, but we're definitely hoping that there is continued work. We know the legislature is doing their best to really figure out ways to expand broadband throughout Vermont, because I think that's a big part of this. That's a barrier that a lot of people throughout the state are struggling with. So so I think I already, just as when we were talking about the continuity of learning, I talked a little bit about the special education piece, how special educators will really be shifting. They will, in some cases, their work will be focused on supporting not just students, but also parents, in order for parents to be able to support their students. They'll be providing services to kids. There's definitely some challenges that they're having to figure out and navigate. What we know at the end of this is we're going to have to meet as IEP teams for all students that are in this situation. And one of the things we'll have to figure out is whether or not kids made progress during this time, or whether or not there was regression. And if there was regression as a result of this, we will be needing to provide compensatory services for those kids. So that's an additional expense. I just want to make sure that the board is aware of that's our obligation under IDEA. So the next piece I want to talk about is childcare. So as this has been evolving over the last several weeks, there were some asks that went into the education realm, and childcare was one of them. So we have worked hard to try to provide supports and work with the private providers in our area. So we have, I should have started with this notion of at central office, there's been, as you can imagine, a lot of work in response to COVID-19. So we've divided up into a team lead model. So people have kind of their area of expertise that they're trying to really become an expert on and gather all of the information and be the lead person in that realm. Heather Moore, she's the team lead for childcare, and she's been doing a really fabulous job of working with the data that's coming through from Let's Grow Kids, partnering with the child development division, and then making those connections for families and private childcare providers. So far, we have been able to match those needs with private providers in the area. One of the things that is probably not transparent is that first of all, I didn't go to teachers to ask for them to volunteer to provide childcare, because they already have the task of the learning piece with the kids and making those connections with the students. So that's what we really needed them focusing on. They needed to definitely have that be their priority. We did try to take a look at how we could use support staff to provide childcare within one of our schools, and we worked for a couple of weeks on trying to navigate that, and we were slow to receive requests for childcare from the Let's Grow Kids group. Once we started receiving it, we were positioning ourselves to be able to move forward. Then it became clearer and clearer about the exemption categories, and quite a few of the staff members who had volunteered to be able to do it fell under those exemption categories, and they were not able to work in the childcare function. So when we asked at the state about that, it was clear that the task really is more focused at this point for us on just making sure that we're assisting and matching and trying to find places for those needs to be met. So we're still in a position where if there's a way that we can partner with private providers in a different way in the future, we're open to that because we certainly want to do our part to help the essential workers so that they can continue to work through this crisis. So in terms of human resources, there's been a lot to figure out in terms of all the things we need to contend with our employees during this process. And I don't know if Morgan wants to add anything specific here, but Morgan, Jamie, and I have really been just trying to work together and take each new challenge just to try to think our way through it and get support from our legal counsel when we need to. And I think we've got a pretty good handle on it at this point. One of the primary goals for us has been around communication and making sure that we keep people informed as this is unfolded, because I think that a lack of knowledge is something that makes things that are scary even scarier. So we've tried to be in front of it anytime we could. We haven't always been able to do that because sometimes there have been shifts that we just weren't aware, we were not aware were coming. So we haven't been able to get in front of other things. But I just wanted to open it up for discussion, and I didn't know if any of the other administrators wanted to add anything here or if board members had questions. So we'll just leave it open.
This is Mary. I have a question, Lynn. I know it's a little hard to tell the kind of trajectory over the next, 2 months with the easing of social distancing. But if, I know that the decision is done, that we're not resuming school in any of our buildings. But if we got to a point where the governor relaxed social distancing kind of rules, for lack of a better word, is there the possibility that that you all would be able to, for the kids who need services, would there be an opportunity then for people to go and work with kids who are on IEPs or receiving services at their homes or in some other way connecting in person with that particular group of children in order to try, like you said, you're going to have to kind of circle back and assess regression and do kind of compensatory services, which I completely understand, but could that be avoided if we get to a point that there could at least be some one-on-one work with those kids so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I don't think we can project too far in advance because we don't know where we're going to be in 6 weeks from now. But I know that one of the concerns, because we had lots of questions when this first began, none of us really kind of expected we'd be in this place where we were all under stay-home order really when it began, or maybe others did and I just didn't. But at first we were wondering about that. Could we have one or two kids come in and we can work with them in the school? Right now, I don't see that happening, Mary. I think one of the things, legal counsel, like I said, they're weighing in on a lot of things as this is unfolding. And one of the things in the guidance has to do with the exposure, right? So if we're putting our staff in and they expose a family to COVID-19, or if we're putting staff in and to a family situation and that family has it and exposes our staff members, that's opening us up to the liability of that as well. So I think that guidance, I certainly would not feel comfortable making that decision at my level. If something like that were to shift, I would want to see that shift be made and lifted at the state level. Even beyond just saying that the social distancing, we can maybe be a little closer to one another. I'd want the state to say something about being okay with it being face-to-face instruction.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just regarding the communication piece of this, and teachers, you know, making contact during this last couple weeks with all families. For families who don't have internet access or maybe don't even have phones, have there been instances where a teacher has not made contact with a family, or has everybody been reached at this point?
Not everyone has been reached at this point. We're tracking that. We're
We're not sure if getting food or.
Well, we know we did a survey before this all began, so I just want to kind of take your question in parts. So
Sorry.
we know the families who don't have internet access, so we know that we can get learning materials into those homes. If the families don't have internet access, those administrative assistants in each of the building are pushing out all of our communications to them through the mail. So we know that they're receiving information from us. We're trying to track contacts that teachers are having with kids. And one of the things we've asked administrators to just tune into is if we have people who have fallen off the radar and who are not responsive to either our calls or other means of trying to communicate with them. So there are some, I don't know the exact number, but they will try everything they can to try to get out there and find ways to connect with those families.
Can I ask you a question, Lynn?
Sure.
You alluded to the calendar, and I wonder, and you also made mention, or somebody made mention of the April vacation or spring vacation. Like, I actually took my printed out copy of the calendar and flung it in the recycle bin the other day because it seems like the whole thing sort of went out the window. But I wondered, and honestly, I probably for the last week or so have been in the I'm not planning crap mode because I can only plan 24 hours at a clip because things have been changing so quickly. So, you know, that is a preface to my question about the calendar. But I just wonder if you have a plan, if there's any, you have any thoughts on that for the current year?
So one of the things that we need to recognize is that our teachers are contracted for a certain number of school days for the year, right? I think there's a little bit of a misconception is that people have been off and people have not been off. People have been working hard. And I'm looking at Erin when I'm saying this because I know Erin is in the field and she's a teacher and she's been doing a lot of work. So in terms of that calendar, there's a connection between that calendar and that collective bargaining agreement too. So that there's a number of work days that are associated with our school calendar. My expectation is that there will be a break, but I have not announced that because we have been told is that Secretary French is planning to provide written guidance on that. So I have not gone out on a limb on my own and said yes.
Okay.
It's as planned for the April break.
Okay. And you would, for those same reasons, anticipate that the school year would go to the length that, unless you get new guidance, it would go to the length that it was originally planned for.
So we have received guidance on that. So Secretary French went to the State Board of Education and requested a waiver. So he requested the ability to grant waivers around the school closure period. So we're expecting that we will be granted a waiver for these days because it is in statute that students need to go to school for 175 days. So we are anticipating, and Secretary French has tipped that to us, that he will be providing waivers for these days, whether or not we need to apply for a certain, I know some schools closed before the state closure happened. So I think those schools in particular will have to apply for individual waivers. My sense is that he will provide a broad waiver for the rest of the state for the days that we have been in session.
And then my other question is around like graduation and school trips and that kind of stuff. Like, I'll tell you, at the college level, we've announced that we're not doing graduation as we had originally intended it to be. And behind the scenes is we're really kind of spinning our wheels trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
But what we do with those students may be something very different than what you do with students at the high school level. And my son's in 8th grade, so that graduation on the one hand feels like, oh, it's no big deal, but on the other hand, it really kind of is a big deal. So I just wonder, it seems like a lot of us are like, it's not canceled, it's just delayed. And I'm assuming that's, sort of the same mantra that you're working under, but I wondered if you had any. I know you've been thinking about that too.
Oh, I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that this is the part that's been the hardest, is that, these are causing our kids to worry, and it's adding additional stress to them because they're thinking about the things they're missing, right? You think about the high school kids that are focused on their spring sports seasons, and our middle school kids as well, and things like prom and graduation. I think the one thing in public school that we have that is different than college, Jean Marie, is we have like 6 more weeks after you.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
our traditional graduations are happening, or our end of the year celebrations are happening in the middle of June. So I think that, I've said pretty publicly, we may not be, we don't know where we'll be in terms of the governor's order, but what we will do and what we can do is commit that as soon as we can, we will find ways to celebrate our students. And I think that for now, that's the best answer we can give, because there's so much uncertainty ahead of us. But just acknowledging that we're not going to let this time pass without finding a way to celebrate them.
Good. I appreciate that.
I think Lisa wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the May 8th date as a directive around graduations, high school graduations anyway. You're aware of that, right, Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my understanding, Lisa, is by May 8th, we will get a directive from the governor or the secretary, maybe the secretary, indicating whether or not we can expect to move forward with our formal graduation ceremonies on time. But I do not believe there's anything prohibiting or prohibitive in that part of the order that we wouldn't be able to plan something for a later date once the stay home provisions have been lifted and the social distancing rules have been lifted as well. So the way I've been approaching it is, even if we're told it can't happen in real time when it's supposed to happen in June, when our world comes back to normal, we'll find a way to honor those kids.
I had one other question while you have the floor, Lynn, and that was just around this other project that we were working on, the Portrait of a Graduate. I'm guessing everything is kind of on hold while we're working on this new bombshell that landed in our world.
So I'll be honest with you, I have pretty much just focused solely on COVID-19 for a few weeks. However, I do know that our consultant has been working, Wendy Baker has been working with our high school students who are on this task force. And so there has been communication going back and forth. And there was a conversation, I think it was early last week, I saw a part of it where they were talking about this might be a good time to reach out to people because people are at home and they're a little more accessible than they normally are. So I know that there was some thought and discussion into, hey, why don't you reach out to your board member contacts and then see who the people are in the community that they think that you should talk to. So I think that they're making attempts behind the scene. I don't think that we're on a trajectory to meet the deadlines that we had hoped for, but it's still going to evolve over time.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Then you don't have to apologize for that, Lynn. It's understandable. I figured everything had fallen to the wayside, but it sounds like there's still, potentially some work that's going on there, which is great.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave the personnel pieces. The principals know this. They have been talking with me individually and getting approvals for the hiring pieces, but I'm going to leave it to them because I don't have this together myself to be able to present as a whole district. So I'll have the principals just share when it's their turn, if they have any new hire teacher updates that they need board approval for. I don't have anything under student, and I put legal issues there because I had to write this over a week ago, and a week right now is like 2 months in real time. So
Mhm.
I didn't know what would be in front of us. Point.
Okay, so, oh, go ahead, John. I saw your hand.
Quick question, Miss Lynn. I just wanted clarification. You mentioned thus far essential employees that needed some sort of childcare. Those needs are being met. Those people are being taken care of, and it's been very minimal thus far. Is that correct?
Well, when it was, I don't know if I could say minimal at this point, but when we were first talking about it, we were not at a place where we were receiving a lot of information yet. So I think when we were at one point up to about 12 families who were seeking assistance, and what happened was after those initial requests came in, we've reached out to every single contact that we've been given. A lot has changed in a lot of people's world since that time, John. So people who were working in essential fields, a lot of those same people have had spouses who no longer can go to work. So there's not the same need that there was when they originally did the survey to sign up for the need. We don't get me wrong, there are still families who need childcare. And so far we have been able to work with the private providers to be able to help them find a match. I haven't spoken with Heather about where we are currently since Monday, but up until Monday, I think we had 2 families, maybe 3 over the weekend. So I don't have a status on the last families that we were connected with.
And I just was curious because worst case scenario, if things do get worse, and I'm thinking of right now, there was a St. Albans town teacher, which I'm not sure if you're familiar, it was just in 7 days today. She was interviewed, and apparently she was symptomatic while she was at the school before they closed. So worst case scenario, there could be a lot more people needed. As a matter of fact, the governor mentioned today, needed in the field, the medical field, to help out. They were looking for volunteers with people with any sort of experience. So that's why I was asking now, at least today, like you said, those needs are being met. Hopefully you or school boards not in a position, or any school boards, I guess, in the state thus far, that's a stressor that's still being asked to use any of our facilities or any of our educators to try to take on that role. Is that kind of on the back burner now? Because initially that's what was mentioned.
So in the
Sense.
beginning, it was more of a mandate. You will offer the child care. So we were trying to figure out how to build our own, because we didn't really understand the other piece of this about, because at that point all the child care centers had just been closed, right?
Right.
So understand the intent was to work with the CDD and the child care. I don't remember their exact title, but the child care specialists, I think they are. That's who Heather has been working with to identify. We identify where there's a need, and then they're trying to help us find childcare providers in the area who are open or who can be open and have space to support those families. So that's where we're doing it at this point. And I think that, if that changes in the future and we have the capacity to be able to support in a different way, we can relook at that. But right now it's working the way it is. So we feel like I certainly can't take teachers to put them there. And right now, because we're focusing so much on the food piece of it, a big part of our labor force has been attached to some of the other primary functions that we've been tasked with.
Yeah, Erin, go ahead. I thought there's some other question out there.
Yeah. So, Lynn, I'm just wondering, I've been in contact with Michelle and Rhoda, but around our playgrounds, and I know that we had talked about putting up a sign in Bakersfield about closing those playgrounds, seeing more and more schools putting out some pretty stern warnings around the non-use. I'm not sure how much we can control it, but I am really concerned about families still coming over and using the structures, and then, you know, just that not being able to clean them, and some of them not understanding what that means and what they're doing. So is there anything that we could do to help prevent?
I am certainly open to suggestions on that. This is something that the principals and I actually were, I think that, I don't remember if it was today or tomorrow, or today or yesterday, I should say, that we had this conversation about playgrounds. So we talked a little bit about signage out there. I know I saw today on social media, several of the principals put pretty stern warnings, like our school, our property is closed. Like, please understand that it isn't safe to play on the playground structures right now, because what we're hearing is that especially metal, the virus can live for quite some time on the metal. So that was the concern about those playground structures. So I think, I don't know if any of the principals want to chime in at this point on that.
We did put out what you and I had talked about, Erin. We put that out on the Facebook. We sent it out to all of our families, both through the mail for those we knew didn't have access, and through email. I think a sign up would be good, but you're right. I don't know how we completely control that.
Well, yeah, we had a community member donate some signs, so I made one and put it out there, but then we had a windstorm and now it's gone. So I don't think there's an easy way to do it unless we rope them off. And even then, you can't control it. I know that there are kids over on our playground daily.
Yep.
Is there another question for Lynn?
Does that mean I get to hit my mute button now, Jean Marie?
I guess so. And then you want to do personnel right now when we're in the principal reports, or do you want to hold that conversation with the principals till the very end, Lynn?
I think that you could have each principal, when it's their section, just give you any hiring updates that they need you to act on.
Okay. Okay, principals, it's your section. And the top of the list for me is Bakersfield, and on my iPhone I can only see 4 of you at a time, and right now I can see Rhoda, so you're my first victim, Rhoda.
Yay!
Any
Go ahead. As far as hiring goes, I mean, you all see what's in my report. I didn't put anything under personnel for hiring, but we do have 2 positions that are out there right now. And we're working toward interviews for those positions. So it's the full-time PE teacher and a science teacher for middle school.
Okay. And Lenny, any comments about personnel for you?
So, Lynn, do I need to speak to if I have specific openings that I've just come about to? I didn't know if that's something that is technically confidential as far as the personnel specifically who are not coming back next year.
Have you received the letter, Lenny?
Yes.
So once you receive the letter, you can.
Okay, so I am going to be looking to hire 2 middle school ELA teachers and 1 elementary teacher. We've been interviewing today and yesterday. We have some pretty strong candidates, but we have not offered the job to anybody.
That's good news. Christy, I can see you next.
Okay, we have a tech integrationist that's open and no candidates for that. So we won't be interviewing anytime soon for that one. A 5th grade teacher and 2 multi-age 3-4s. We do have candidates for all those, and I'm working through resumes. I contacted some people today for some interviews early next week.
Good. And Sandy, Any
We have-
personnel updates?
We have the math interventionist position advertised, and I have 5 candidates in there and a couple of strong ones. And I'm going to start pulling together a team, see how we can do some virtual interviews. So that's coming up next week. And that's it.
Thank you. That's like good news all around. It sounds like you guys are all fairly hopeful for your positions. I'm glad to hear that.
I just want to say for the principals that they've had a lot on their plates in the last few weeks with navigating the response to COVID-19. And at the same time, they're also, like you said, a lot of plates, Jean Marie, like they're keeping these plates spinning because our priority is definitely to get these positions filled as quickly as we can so that we're positioned well for next year when we do come back. So they're doing some really good work during this really busy time.
And then I just wanted to open the floor up to the board members if anyone has questions for the principals surrounding the reports that they submitted. You have to speak up because I can't see you all at once. Okay. Okay, I think the floor is yours, Morgan.
Okay, thank you. I will try to be quick. In the report, I mentioned that I had emailed out the Sheldon audits for last year. And so similar to the motion you gave me last month, I would be looking for a motion to accept the Sheldon Town School District audit for the year ended June 30, 2019 on behalf of that district and its dissolved board.
Anybody in particular want to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Sorry, you'll have to say your name.
Miranda. I will make that motion.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and by roll, we'll vote on this. Mary, I could see you first. Let's start with you.
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
And Jean Marie, yes. Thank you all.
Okay, brief update on the Sheldon Elementary School project. Obviously, this would be a great time for us to be tearing into that building while there are no kids in school. The contractors are trying to get clarity right now on whether they're allowed to travel to work. So first up for that project would be the asbestos remediation firm, and they're trying to get some kind of green light from Commerce and Community Development, who at one point seemed to be the ones who were able to weigh in on whether people could do work or not. They seem to have backed away from that, and what I've heard unofficially is that Spates Construction, who's the general contractor, has been operating under the assumption that this stay-at-home order is applies to folks like them as well.
Can I interrupt, Morgan?
Sure.
My understanding is that construction workers are essential workers, so they really need to go to the top. But I can pose that question as well, because we have a forum to get answers from the administration probably more quickly than other people can. So I'll get back to you with an answer on that.
That would be great. The Spates wouldn't necessarily be harmed by a delay. They're doing a lot of work on submittals, so they're, getting the specific details of the types of products that they're going to be putting in the school, and kind of we're working through the approval process there. But if we could get the asbestos guys in there to do their week or two of work now, we would definitely do that. One motion that I would like regarding the Sheldon project is some authorization to execute change orders. So these are going to be changes to the overall contract that we have with Spates. as we discover things as the project moves forward. So I know I've got one in my inbox for a pretty minor amount that's just changing out handicapped handrails because a code official who's now going over the project in more detail has determined that what we had initially proposed wasn't going to fly. So in the past, we have had the board give authority to execute change orders in the amount of $1,000 for the clerk of the works, $2,500 for the business manager, and $5,000 for the board chair. We don't have a clerk hired on this project yet, so in your packet, I put out the idea of giving the principal $1,000, me $2,500, and the board chair $5,000. We're not anticipating a lot of change orders on this project because we know we don't have the room financially to add a lot of things to it. But I would like to, if not those amounts, at least allow the board chair to do $5,000 away from the table. And that'll just prevent us, once we get into construction, from needing to either call a special board meeting or to wait for a board meeting to get the go-ahead on some relatively small changes.
I will make that motion.
Was that you, Miranda?
Yes, sorry, Miranda. I will make that motion.
Thank you. Okay, let's vote by roll. Mary?
Well, wait, I just have a clarification. Morgan, you said because we
Sure.
don't yet have a clerk of the works, the motion would be for you to have authority to do 1,000, the principal 2,500, and board chair 5,000.
Principal 1,000, me 2,500, board chair 5,000.
Okay, great. Yep. Then yes, that's fine for me.
Thank you, Mary. John?
John, yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And Miranda?
Yes.
And Jean Marie, yes. I keep thinking I'm forgetting somebody, but oh, there you are, Catherine. Oh, I could see you say it, but I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. Catherine, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I could see your lips moving, but I could read them because it was a simple word, but I couldn't hear you. Okay. Go
And
ahead, Morgan.
That's all I have for action.
The copier contract?
The bids for the copier contract were, the deadline was extended another week, so I'll bring that to your next meeting.
Okay, cool. Where does that bring us now? Sorry, guys.
I have a quick
Go ahead.
question.
Sure.
I'm wondering if there are any updates on the hiring for our facilities manager, and if I can't remember where we landed with crafting the job description and such, and maybe that's one for Lynn.
I can answer it because
Okay.
I'm the one taking the first whack at the job description. I've basically poached from other people who are listing and looking for similar positions now. Lynn and Jamie are looking over the draft that I had pulled together. We normally would post that sometime after April 4th, which is when you guys are outside of your 30-day reconsideration window for the budget. If we had it ready to go earlier, we would have, but we've had other things on our plate.
Okay, so it looks like we are at set board business and setting future agenda items. Comments from the crowd. I just have to say, I'm on like day 5, I think, of working from home, and I hate it. Like, I need to be with my people, and this is not working for me. But, you know, just so that nobody dies, I'll stay home, I guess.
I'm with you, Jean Marie, but I do want to say a huge shout out to anybody who's in education right now. A school custodian, a food service worker, support staff, teachers, staff, administrative staff. You guys have been unbelievable. I cannot believe what's been thrown at you and how you've just picked up the ball and ran with it. So my hat is off to you. I could nowhere near juggle what you guys are all juggling. And I feel like I'm ready to pull my hair out, like being stuck at home and trying to manage so many different things. And I'm not even doing half of what you all are doing. So please, please tell your staff that they're doing a great job. And thank you.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better. I 100% agree with Lisa. Thank you for saying that.
Well, I'm wondering if in conjunction with that, I thought I saw, and I can't find the notes right now, that on board business was teacher appreciation.
It is the very next item, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, so
Oh, wait.
I had added, whoop,
Go ahead, Mary. But you're muted.
okay.
Okay.
Better. Okay. I had added that because we're heading into the time that I don't know what the other schools have historically done. So, you know, in Montgomery, we would kind of usually do something for the teachers for the teacher appreciation, recognition, and gift certificates from some of our local businesses. We tended to kind of keep them on rotation. So I just this is the first year now for us with the new district. So it would be, would love to hear what everyone else has done in the past and how we want to do that for this, you know, what's coming up. And, you know, for me, I would love to still support some of our local businesses in Montgomery. And I wonder if each school representatives in their respective towns maybe want to do something that supports their kind of local businesses as well. That would be my preference for how we did our teacher appreciation for this, you know, that's coming up. But I certainly want to coordinate it, you know, across the district.
I think you could hear from each town about what they've done in the past, but I would just remind you that that person down there is a teacher and that person over there is recording this meeting and putting it out to everybody. And so what you might want to do after you hear that is just pick one or two of you to get together offline and figure out what to do for the board.
Okay. I'm happy to spearhead, you know, that and work with one or two. Well, it can't be, I guess it could be one or two other board members to put our heads together and think about what would be nice. It seems now more than ever incredibly relevant and important.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have more than 4, so you could have up to 4.
Oh, cool. Okay. Who would
Erin,
like
did you want to say something?
I just was, you know, wondering about a budget.
Yeah, I can look into what you've done in the past in terms of budget for this year. That's a great question.
And I'd love to hear what everyone has done historically, you know, Bakersfield, Berkshire, Sheldon, what you all have done in the past, how you've celebrated that.
I'll speak for Bakersfield. It's been mostly food brought in to the teachers. I think, Erin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've done it like over the course of a week. But there was a like culmination breakfast that I attended a couple times, I think. It was first thing in the morning before classes began. And the teachers were kind of like, what the heck is Jean Marie doing here? So Not that they didn't appreciate the food and so forth. It was awkward and weird. And now that they're not all in the building together, I wholeheartedly agree that we need to do something, but what we've done historically, I think doesn't seem doable or appropriate today.
Yeah.
So, Lenny, correct me if I'm wrong, because I might have lost track, but I believe our PTO type organization has done that type of breakfast, appreciation breakfast, and the board has given in the past gift certificates to local businesses, for instance, the Pine Cone in Berkshire. And possibly the Phoenix House. Does that sound right to you, Leonard?
Yeah, I think it was over a collection of days. The PTO did a couple things. The board did usually give a gift certificate of some sort. I feel like the PTO, I think it was the PTO that paid to have like a massage chair or a masseuse.
Right.
People signed up for some massage sessions during their planning periods on like a Thursday or Friday. But that was about all. It was typically something along those lines. Some food that was provided, some snacks, a lunch here or there, and a breakfast here or there as well.
Miranda or Christy, do either of you want to share about Sheldon?
The PTO sponsored some food a couple times a week, so a breakfast once, and then maybe one afternoon there were some other fruit platters or something like that. I usually did a day just myself of like cookies or something that I brought in from a bakery, and the PTO did for a few years. We didn't do it last year because I think they couldn't find anyone, but the massages that people signed up for during the day, the board would send out a letter or something, but didn't organize anything. So.
Yeah, in Bakersfield, it was the principal and the PTO that arranged it all. We just got to like sign our names from the board. So thank you to all of you for putting all of the effort together for that.
So it seems that obviously any of the in-building events and special kind of things like massage and such and breakfasts aren't going to be possible. So I think in lieu of any of that, then we might want to talk about gift certificates and, Morgan, maybe I could touch base with you about budget. And if there's anyone else that would like to kind of brainstorm, I'm happy to have a co-pilot.
I wouldn't mind helping.
Sweet, that'd be great, Erin. Well, maybe I'll connect with you then,
Okay.
and we'll work with Morgan on a budget, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome.
Thanks, Mary. And then Lynn, we have executive session at the end of our agenda here. Was there something you wanted to bring us into executive for?
I do not have anything for executive session. Was there actually, hold on. You have that on your agenda?
Yeah, it's under board business, letter C.
I think that might have been a placeholder in case we need
Yeah.
to.
That would be my guess. Okay. Okay, then I think that's it. Our next meeting will probably be via Zoom, I'm guessing, if this continues. And so then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I can make
I mean,
that
seriously,
motion.
somebody.
Erin.
We're all trying to unmute ourselves.
I know.
You can't do it fast enough.
All in favor, please signify by signing off from the meeting. Thank you all. Stay healthy and well. Nice to see you.
Bye.
You too.
Take care, everyone.